Say a smile can open any door, but Marcus never realized this could break so many hearts. In the hallways of Jefferson High, whispers followed him like shadows. Girls would deliberately drop books just to catch his attention. Love notes appeared in his locker daily. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from admirers he barely knew. But behind that million-dollar smile that made teenage hearts flutter, Marcus carried a secret that would shock everyone who thought they knew him. While the entire school saw him as the guy who could have anyone he wanted, the truth was far more beautiful and heartbreaking than anyone could imagine. This is the story of how one boy's smile became both his greatest gift and his biggest burden, and how true love taught him that sometimes the most precious things in life are the ones we almost lose before we realize their worth. What happens when the person everyone wants falls for the one person who seems completely out of reach? Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the most impossible odds. Marcus Thompson had no idea that his life would change forever on a Tuesday morning in September. He walked through the doors of Jefferson High School like he did every day, backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds playing his favorite songs. But something was different about that particular morning. Maybe it was the way the sunlight caught his face as he smiled at Mrs. Henderson, the security guard. Maybe it was how his genuine laugh echoed through the hallway when his friend Jake told a terrible joke. Whatever it was, that Tuesday marked the beginning of everything. The first sign came during second period chemistry class. Marcus was focused on his lab experiment, carefully measuring solutions, when he noticed Sarah Martinez staring at him from across the room. When their eyes met, she quickly looked away, her cheeks turning bright red. He thought nothing of it, and continued with his work. During lunch, Marcus sat at his usual table with Jake and two other friends from the basketball team. They were discussing their upcoming game against Central High when suddenly, a group of girls approached their table. Marcus recognized them as popular students, the kind who usually didn't interact with guys like him. He considered himself average, maybe slightly above average in looks, but certainly nothing special. "Hey Marcus," said Jennifer Walsh, clearly the spokesperson for the group. She had perfectly styled blonde hair and the confidence that came with being one of the most popular girls in school. "We were wondering if you wanted to sit with us today." Marcus looked confused. "Thanks, but I'm good here with my friends." The girls exchanged glances, and Jennifer tried again. "Well, maybe tomorrow? Or this weekend? A bunch of us are going to the mall." "That's nice of you to ask, but I usually spend weekends with my family or playing basketball," Marcus replied politely. After the girls walked away, looking disappointed, Jake stared at his friend in disbelief. "Dude, do you have any idea what just happened? Jennifer Walsh just asked you out." Jennifer Walsh. The Jennifer Walsh who turned down half the football team. Marcus shrugged. She was just being friendly. But Jake wasn't the only one who noticed. Throughout the rest of the day, Marcus found himself the center of attention in ways he had never experienced. Girls who had never spoken to him before suddenly needed help with their lockers, which coincidentally were near his. In English class, 3 different girls offered to be his partner for the upcoming project. During basketball practice, he noticed a group of girls watching from the bleachers, something that rarely happened during regular practice sessions. Coach Williams pulled him aside after practice. "Son, I don't know what you did, but whatever it is, keep it up. We haven't had this many spectators at a practice all season." That evening at home, Marcus sat at the dinner table with his parents and younger sister Emma. His father, David, worked as a mechanic at the local auto shop, while his mother, Linda, was a nurse at the community hospital. They weren't wealthy, but they were happy, and Marcus had always appreciated the close bond his family shared. "How was school today, sweetie?" his mother asked as she passed the mashed potatoes. "Weird," Marcus replied honestly. "A lot of girls were acting strange around me. I don't understand it." Emma, who was 13 and in 8th grade at the middle school, rolled her eyes. "Maybe they finally noticed you're not completely hideous, brother dear." "Emma," their mother scolded gently, but she was smiling. "No, seriously," Emma continued. "Marcus, you're actually pretty good looking. You just never notice because you're too busy thinking about basketball and your grades. But girls notice. Trust me." Marcus looked skeptical. "I'm just regular. There's nothing special about me." His father chuckled. "Son, sometimes we're the last ones to see what others see clearly. Your mother fell for my devastating charm, after all." "David Thompson, you were hardly devastating," Linda laughed. But you did have a sweet smile and kind eyes. Still do. The next morning, Marcus's life became even more surreal. His locker, which was usually surrounded by the typical chaos of students grabbing books and talking with friends, had become some sort of gathering place. When he approached it, he found a small crowd of girls pretending to use the nearby lockers or drinking from the water fountain. As he opened his locker, several folded papers fell out. Marcus picked them up, confused, and opened the first one. It was a note written in careful, curvy handwriting. "Marcus, I think you're really cute. Would you like to go to the movies this Friday? Call me. Stephanie, 555-0147. The second note was similar, from a girl named Ashley. The third was from someone named Rachel, asking him to be her date for the upcoming homecoming dance. Marcus stared at the notes in bewilderment. He had received exactly 0 love notes in his entire life, and now he had 3 in one morning. Jake appeared beside him, reading over his shoulder. "Holy moly, Marcus. You're like a magnet or something. What did you do? Make a deal with the devil?" "I don't understand any of this," Marcus said, carefully placing the notes back in his locker. "I'm the same person I was last week." But, as the days passed, it became clear that something had definitely shifted. Marcus couldn't walk down the hallway without receiving smiles, waves, and compliments. Girls found reasons to ask him for help with their homework, even subjects he wasn't particularly good at. His phone, which usually only buzzed with messages from his family and close friends, was now constantly lighting up with texts from numbers he didn't recognize. The attention was overwhelming and, honestly, unwanted. Marcus had always been a humble, down-to-earth person who valued genuine connections over superficial popularity. The sudden flood of interest felt fake and uncomfortable. He began to notice that many of the girls who were now pursuing him had never shown any interest in getting to know him as a person. They seemed more interested in his smile, his looks, and the idea of dating him than in who he actually was. During lunch on Friday, Marcus found himself surrounded by so many girls that he could barely eat his sandwich. They asked him questions about his favorite movies, his hobbies, and his plans for the weekend. But their questions felt scripted and insincere. He noticed they seemed more interested in being seen talking to him than in actually listening to his answers. "Marcus, you should totally come to Katie's party tomorrow night," said Megan, one of the cheerleaders. "Everyone will be there." "It's going to be amazing," added Katie herself. "My parents are out of town, and we're going to have music and dancing and—" "Thanks, but I don't really party," Marcus interrupted politely. "I usually help my dad in the garage on weekends, and I have basketball practice early Sunday morning." The girls looked shocked. In their world, turning down a party invitation from Katie Morrison was unthinkable. But Marcus genuinely preferred spending time with his family and focusing on his responsibilities. That afternoon, during his last class of the day, Marcus found himself thinking about how strange his life had become. He sat in the back row of his advanced biology class, trying to focus on Mrs. Patterson's lecture about cellular respiration, but his mind kept wandering. Through the window, he could see the school courtyard where students gathered during lunch and free periods. His eyes fell on a figure sitting alone under the large oak tree in the corner of the courtyard. It was Elena Rodriguez, a quiet girl from his grade whom he had noticed before, but never really talked to. She was reading a book, completely absorbed in whatever story held her attention. Her long, dark hair fell like a curtain around her face, and she seemed perfectly content in her solitude. Something about the peaceful scene drew Marcus's attention. While he was being overwhelmed by unwanted attention from dozens of girls, Elena appeared to exist in her own calm bubble, unbothered by the social chaos that seemed to consume everyone else. He found himself wondering what book she was reading, what thoughts occupied her mind during those quiet moments. Elena Rodriguez had always been somewhat invisible at Jefferson High. She wasn't unpopular exactly, but she wasn't part of the social hierarchy that seemed to matter so much to most students. She was known for being incredibly smart, always earning top grades in her advanced placement classes. She volunteered at the local animal shelter on weekends and was rumored to speak 3 languages fluently. But she kept to herself, rarely participating in school social events or drama. Marcus realized he had been watching Elena for several minutes when Mrs. Patterson called his name. Mr. Thompson, perhaps you'd like to share your thoughts on cellular energy production with the class? Sorry, Mrs. Patterson. I was thinking about mitochondria, he replied quickly, earning a few chuckles from his classmates. After class, Marcus found himself taking a different route to his locker, one that happened to pass by the oak tree where Elena had been sitting. She was gone now, but he could see the small indentation in the grass where she had been reading. For some reason, that spot seemed more interesting to him than all the attention he had been receiving from other girls. That evening, Marcus lay on his bed thinking about the events of the past week. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from various girls asking about his weekend plans, inviting him to parties, or simply trying to start conversations. But instead of feeling flattered or excited, he felt exhausted. Emma knocked on his door and peeked in. "Can I come in? You look like you're having an existential crisis." "What's an existential crisis?" Marcus asked, making room for his sister on the bed. "When you question the meaning of your existence and your place in the universe," Emma replied matter-of-factly. "I learned it in my advanced English class." Marcus laughed despite his confusion. "Then, yes, I guess I am having an existential crisis. This whole week has been insane. Girls who never talked to me before are suddenly asking me out, leaving notes in my locker, and following me around school. I don't understand what changed." Emma studied her brother's face seriously. "Marcus, can I tell you something without you getting a big head about it?" "Sure. You're actually really good looking. Like, movie star good looking. But you never acted like it, so people didn't really notice. This week, something changed. Maybe you started carrying yourself differently, or maybe people just finally opened their eyes. But now they see what was always there." Marcus frowned. "But I don't want to be liked just because of how I look. That seems so shallow." "It is shallow," Emma agreed. "That's why most of these girls probably aren't worth your time. If they only like you for your smile or your face, they don't really like you at all. They like the idea of you." Her words made sense to Marcus in a way that nothing else had all week. The attention he was receiving felt empty because it was based on something superficial. None of these girls had taken the time to learn about his interests, his dreams, or his personality. They were attracted to an image, not a person. "So what do I do?" Marcus asked his wise younger sister. "Be yourself," Emma replied simply. "The right person will like you for who you are, not just what you look like. And maybe pay attention to the girls who aren't throwing themselves at you. Sometimes the best people are the quiet ones who actually take time to see beyond the surface." As Emma left his room, Marcus thought about her advice. His mind wandered back to the image of Elena reading peacefully under the oak tree, completely unaware of and uninterested in the social drama swirling around the rest of the school. There was something appealing about that kind of authenticity and self-assurance. Marcus decided that starting Monday, he would try to navigate his new reality with more awareness. He would be polite to everyone, but wouldn't encourage the superficial attention he was receiving. And maybe, if he was brave enough, he would try to learn more about the girl who seemed content to exist outside the chaos that had suddenly engulfed his life. Little did Marcus know that his decision would lead him down a path that would change everything he thought he knew about love, friendship, and what it truly meant to connect with another person. The journey ahead would test everything he believed about himself and teach him that sometimes the most meaningful relationships begin with the smallest, most genuine moments. As he finally fell asleep that Friday night, Marcus's last thought was about Elena Rodriguez and the book she had been reading under the oak tree. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities, but for the first time since the chaos began, Marcus felt like he had a direction to move toward rather than just attention to run away from. Monday morning arrived with the usual chaos of a new school week, but Marcus approached it with a different mindset. Armed with his sister's advice and a clearer understanding of what he wanted from his relationships, he walked through the hallways of Jefferson High with purpose. The attention hadn't diminished over the weekend. If anything, it seemed to have intensified. As he made his way to his first period advanced mathematics class, Marcus was intercepted by no fewer than 5 different girls. Each had a reason to talk to him, from asking about homework assignments they could have asked anyone about, to inviting him to study sessions for classes they didn't even share. Marcus was polite but brief with each interaction, thanking them for their interest but explaining that he preferred to keep his social circle small. In mathematics class, Marcus found himself sitting 2 rows behind Elena Rodriguez. He had never really paid attention to her presence in this class before, but now he noticed everything. The way she took meticulous notes in handwriting so neat it looked like calligraphy. How she never raised her hand to answer questions, even though he was certain she knew the answers. The small stack of books beside her desk that weren't required for any class, suggesting she read constantly for pleasure. During the lesson on complex polynomial equations, Marcus watched as Elena worked through the problems with an ease that impressed him. While other students struggled with the concepts, she moved through each equation like she was solving simple arithmetic. There was something beautiful about watching someone who was genuinely passionate about learning, someone who found joy in understanding rather than just completing assignments for grades. When the bell rang, Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. Instead of heading directly to his next class, he approached Elena's desk as she was carefully organizing her books. "Elena," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She looked up, and Marcus was struck by her eyes. They were a warm brown color with flecks of gold, and they held an intelligence and depth that he hadn't expected. For a moment, she seemed surprised that he was talking to her, but then her expression shifted to one of curious attention. "Yes," she replied, her voice quiet but clear. "I noticed you're really good at these polynomial problems. I was wondering if you might have time to help me understand the last few steps of problem 15? I got lost somewhere in the middle." Elena studied his face for a moment, as if trying to determine whether his question was genuine. Apparently satisfied with what she saw, she nodded slowly. "Sure. Do you have a few minutes before your next class?" "I have study hall next period," Marcus replied, hoping his eagerness wasn't too obvious. Elena gathered her books and led him to a quiet corner of the library. As they walked, Marcus noticed how she moved with confidence despite her quiet demeanor. She wasn't shy exactly, he realized. She was simply selective about when and with whom she chose to engage. In the library, Elena spread Marcus's math homework on the table between them and began explaining the problem with a patience and clarity that impressed him. She didn't make him feel stupid for not understanding the concept immediately. Instead, she broke down each step in a way that made perfect sense. "The key is to remember that you're not just solving for x," Elena explained, her finger tracing the equation on his paper. "You're solving for the relationship between the variables. See how if you factor out the common terms first, the whole equation becomes much simpler." Marcus found himself more interested in watching Elena explain the concept than in the math itself. She was animated when she talked about something she understood well, her hands moving gracefully as she illustrated her points. There was a passion in her voice that suggested she genuinely enjoyed mathematics, not just because she was good at it, but because she found beauty in the logic and structure of numbers. "That makes so much sense," Marcus said, and he meant it. "You're an amazing teacher. Have you ever thought about becoming a math professor?" Elena looked surprised by the compliment. "Actually, yes. I want to study mathematics and computer science in college. Maybe become a research mathematician someday." "That's incredible," Marcus replied sincerely. "What kind of research?" For the next 20 minutes, Elena explained her interest in applied mathematics and how it could be used to solve real-world problems, from modeling climate change to developing algorithms for medical research. Marcus found himself completely absorbed in her enthusiasm and intelligence. This was a side of his school that he had never really seen before, a world where students were genuinely passionate about learning and discovery rather than just social status and popularity. When the bell rang signaling the end of study hall, Marcus realized he was disappointed that their conversation had to end. "Thank you so much for helping me with the math," he said as they gathered their books. "Would you mind if I asked you for help again sometime? I mean, if you don't mind. I know you're probably busy with your own advanced classes." Elena smiled, and Marcus noticed that her smile was completely different from the smiles he had been receiving from other girls all week. It was genuine, reaching her eyes and transforming her entire face. "I don't mind at all. Math tutoring is actually something I enjoy." As they parted ways in the hallway, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in all his interactions with the other girls who had been pursuing him. He felt genuinely interested in getting to know Elena better, not because of how she looked or her social status, but because of who she was as a person. The rest of the day passed differently than the previous week had. Marcus still received attention from various girls, but he found himself comparing every interaction to his conversation with Elena. The difference was stark. While other girls seemed to be performing for his attention, Elena had simply been herself, sharing something she was passionate about without any apparent ulterior motive. During lunch, Marcus sat with Jake and his usual friends, but found himself distracted. His eyes kept scanning the cafeteria until he spotted Elena sitting alone at a small table near the windows, reading a book while she ate her sandwich. She seemed completely content with her solitude, unbothered by the social dynamics that consumed most of the other students. "Earth to Marcus," Jake said, waving a hand in front of his friend's face. "You've been staring across the cafeteria for the past 5 minutes. What's so interesting over there?" Marcus realized he had been caught. "Just thinking about our math homework." Jake followed Marcus's gaze and spotted Elena. "Oh, you're looking at Elena Rodriguez. She's in my AP history class. Really smart girl. Kind of quiet, though. I don't think I've ever seen her at any parties or school events. What do you know about her?" Marcus asked, trying to sound casual. "Not much," Jake replied. "She gets perfect grades and everything. I heard she already got accepted to MIT or something like that. She volunteers somewhere on weekends. She's not really part of our social circle, you know? Different crowd." Marcus wondered what Jake meant by different crowd. Elena didn't seem to belong to any particular crowd at all. She seemed to exist independently of the social hierarchies that governed most of high school life. That afternoon, Marcus had advanced biology, another class he shared with Elena. This time, when Mrs. Patterson assigned lab partners for their upcoming project on cellular genetics, Marcus saw his opportunity. "Elena," he said as students began pairing up around the room, "would you like to be my lab partner for this project?" She looked surprised again, and Marcus wondered if people rarely approached her for partnerships. "Are you sure? This project is going to be pretty complex. It'll require a lot of research and detailed analysis." "That's exactly why I'd like to work with you," Marcus replied honestly. "I've seen how thorough you are with your work. Plus, I really want to do well in this class." Elena agreed, and they spent the remainder of the period planning their approach to the project. Marcus was impressed by how quickly she understood the requirements and how thoughtfully she organized their research strategy. Working with her felt like a partnership between equals rather than the typical group project dynamic where one person did most of the work while others coasted along. As the school day ended, Marcus found himself looking forward to working on their biology project. For the first time since the chaos of his newfound popularity had begun, he felt excited about something that had nothing to do with the attention he was receiving from other girls. That evening at dinner, Marcus's parents noticed his improved mood. "You seem happier today, sweetheart," his mother observed as they shared a meal of homemade lasagna. "Did your day go better?" "Much better," Marcus replied. "I actually had some really interesting conversations today, and I got paired with a great lab partner for my biology project." Emma looked up from her plate with interest. "Oh, really? What's their name?" "Elena Rodriguez. She's incredibly smart. We're going to research cellular genetics together." Marcus's parents exchanged a glance that he didn't quite understand, but Emma grinned knowingly. "Elena Rodriguez," Emma repeated. "Is she pretty?" "Emma," their mother warned gently. "It's okay, Mom," Marcus said. "And yes, she is pretty. But that's not why I like talking to her. She's just genuinely interesting. She wants to be a research mathematician, and she explained some concepts to me today that actually made sense for the first time." David looked pleased. "Sounds like you found someone who challenges you intellectually. Those are the best kinds of friendships. Or relationships," Emma added with a mischievous smile. Marcus felt his cheeks warm slightly, but he didn't disagree with his sister's implication. There was something about Elena that intrigued him in a way that went beyond friendship, though he wasn't ready to examine those feelings too closely yet. The next morning, Marcus arrived at school with a different energy than he had felt in weeks. Instead of dreading the hallway encounters with girls he barely knew, he found himself looking forward to seeing Elena in their shared classes. He had even done extra reading for their biology project the night before, something he rarely bothered with for group assignments. His first opportunity to see Elena came during second period mathematics. Marcus arrived early and was pleased when Elena entered the classroom a few minutes later. She nodded at him politely as she took her seat, and Marcus felt a small thrill at being acknowledged. During the lesson, Marcus found himself paying more attention than usual, partly because he wanted to impress Elena with his understanding, and partly because her explanations the previous day had actually improved his comprehension of the material. When Mrs. Johnson asked a particularly challenging question about quadratic functions, Marcus surprised himself by raising his hand and offering a correct answer. After class, Elena approached him as he was putting his books away. "That was a great answer to Mrs. Johnson's question," she said. "You really understood the relationship between the coefficients and the graph shape." Marcus felt prouder of Elena's compliment than he had felt about any of the attention he had received from other girls. Her praise felt earned and meaningful because it was based on his actual abilities and effort. "Thanks," he replied. "Your explanation yesterday really helped me see the bigger picture." "I'm glad it helped," Elena said. "Are you free this afternoon to work on our biology project? I found some interesting research papers in the library database that I think you'd find fascinating." Marcus agreed enthusiastically, and they made plans to meet in the library after school. As Elena walked away, Marcus realized he was genuinely excited about studying, something that would have seemed impossible just a week ago. The rest of the day passed quickly, with Marcus finding himself less bothered by the continuing attention from other girls. He was polite, but brief in his interactions, his mind focused on the afternoon's study session with Elena. When he arrived at the library after school, Marcus found Elena already there, surrounded by books and printed research articles. She had claimed a large table in the quiet study area and had organized their materials with impressive efficiency. "Wow," Marcus said as he sat down across from her. "You've been busy." Elena smiled. "I may have gotten a little carried away. I found some research about CRISPR gene editing that I thought might be relevant to our project. And there are some fascinating studies about inherited genetic markers that could add depth to our analysis." For the next 2 hours, Marcus and Elena dove deep into their research. Elena introduced him to scientific databases he had never known existed and showed him how to evaluate the credibility of research sources. Marcus contributed his own insights and questions, finding that Elena valued his perspectives even when they approached problems differently. What struck Marcus most was how natural their collaboration felt. Elena never made him feel inferior because of her advanced knowledge, and she seemed genuinely interested in his thoughts and ideas. Their different strengths complemented each other perfectly, with Elena's analytical precision balancing Marcus's intuitive understanding of broader concepts. As they worked, Marcus learned more about Elena as a person. She told him about her volunteer work at the animal shelter, where she helped care for abandoned pets and assisted with adoption events. She explained how her interest in mathematics had developed from childhood games her grandfather had played with her, teaching her to see patterns and relationships in everything around her. "My grandfather used to say that mathematics was the language God used to write the universe," Elena shared as they took a break from their research. "I know that sounds cheesy, but I've always loved that idea, that there are these beautiful, consistent patterns underlying everything from the spiral of a seashell to the orbit of planets." Marcus found Elena's passion infectious. "That's not cheesy at all. It's actually really beautiful. I never thought about math that way before." "Most people don't," Elena replied. "They see numbers and equations as boring or difficult. But, to me, mathematics is like music or poetry. There's an elegance to it when everything fits together perfectly." As their study session came to an end, Marcus realized he was reluctant to leave. Their conversation had ranged from cellular biology to philosophy to Elena's dreams of graduate school, and he felt like he could talk with her for hours without running out of interesting topics. "This was really productive," Elena said as they packed up their materials. "I think we're going to have an excellent project. I hope we can work together again after this," Marcus said, then immediately worried he had been too forward. But Elena smiled warmly. "I'd like that too. You ask really good questions, Marcus. You make me think about things in ways I hadn't considered before." As they walked out of the library together, Marcus felt a contentment he hadn't experienced in weeks. For all the attention he had been receiving from other girls, none of those interactions had left him feeling as energized and excited as this afternoon with Elena had. That evening, as Marcus told his family about his day, he realized something important had shifted in his priorities. The superficial popularity that had been overwhelming him suddenly seemed far less important than the genuine connection he was building with someone who saw him as more than just a pretty face. Emma, with her 13-year-old wisdom, summed it up perfectly over dessert. It sounds like you found someone who likes your brain as much as your smile, Marcus. That's the kind of person worth getting to know better. Marcus went to sleep that night thinking about Elena's laugh when he had made a joke about cellular mitosis, and how her eyes had lit up when she talked about her grandfather's influence on her love of mathematics. For the first time since his life had been turned upside down by unwanted attention, Marcus felt like he was moving towards something meaningful rather than just trying to escape from chaos. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to learn more about the remarkable girl who had captured his interest so completely. Marcus fell asleep wondering what other depths Elena Rodriguez might reveal, and hoping she might be equally interested in discovering who he really was beneath the smile that had started this whole journey. The weeks following Marcus and Elena's first study session marked a gradual but profound shift in Marcus's high school experience. While the attention from other girls continued unabated, Marcus found himself increasingly uninterested in superficial interactions. His focus had shifted entirely to the quiet, brilliant girl who challenged him intellectually and made him want to become a better version of himself. Their biology project became the foundation for a deeper friendship that neither of them had expected. What had started as academic collaboration evolved into daily conversations that ranged far beyond their shared classes. Marcus began arriving at school early so he could catch Elena at her locker before first period. She would share interesting articles she had read the night before or tell him about the rescue animals she was helping at the shelter. In return, Marcus told her about his family, his dreams of playing college basketball, and his growing interest in subjects he had never cared about before meeting her. Elena's influence on Marcus was remarkable. His grades improved dramatically as she helped him develop better study habits and showed him how to approach complex problems systematically. But more than academic improvement, Marcus found himself becoming more thoughtful and introspective. Elena asked questions that made him examine his beliefs and goals in ways he had never bothered to before. "What do you want to do after college?" Elena asked one afternoon as they sat under the oak tree in the courtyard, the same spot where Marcus had first noticed her reading alone. Marcus considered the question seriously. Before meeting Elena, his post-graduation plans had been vague, centered around basketball and a general idea of maybe studying business or communications. But Elena's passion for her future career made him realize how little thought he had put into his own direction. "Honestly, I'm not sure," Marcus admitted. "I always assumed I'd play basketball in college and figure out the rest later. But talking to you about your research interests has made me realize I want to do something more meaningful than just getting by." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "Basketball could still be part of your future, but maybe think about what kind of impact you want to have on the world. What problems do you care about solving?" These conversations became a regular part of Marcus's days, and he found himself looking forward to Elena's insights and challenges more than anything else in his school routine. She never made him feel foolish for not having everything figured out, but she encouraged him to think more deeply about his choices and aspirations. Meanwhile, the situation with other girls at school became increasingly complicated. As Marcus spent more time with Elena, rumors began circulating about their relationship. Some girls seemed to view Elena as competition and began making subtle comments about her appearance or social status. Marcus was disturbed by these comments and found himself becoming protective of Elena, though she seemed largely unaware of or unaffected by the gossip. One particularly difficult situation arose when Jennifer Walsh, the popular girl who had first approached Marcus weeks earlier, cornered him after basketball practice. "Marcus, I don't understand what's happening," Jennifer said, her usual confidence replaced by something approaching desperation. "You used to be friendly when we talked, but lately you barely acknowledge me. Are you actually dating that weird math girl?" Marcus felt his temper flare at Jennifer's dismissive description of Elena. "Elena isn't weird. She's brilliant and kind and genuine, which is more than I can say for most people around here." Jennifer's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "She's a nobody, Marcus. She doesn't go to parties, she doesn't have any friends, and she spends her time reading alone like some kind of hermit. Why would you waste your time with someone like that when you could be with? She gestured to herself. Someone like you. Marcus finished. Someone who never bothered to learn my last name until I became popular? Someone who wants to date me because other girls want to date me? Elena actually cares about who I am as a person, not just what I look like or who else wants to be with me. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears, but Marcus had lost any sympathy for her superficial approach to relationships. Elena is worth 10 of you, he said firmly. And if you can't see that, then you're exactly the kind of person I don't want to associate with. Word of Marcus's confrontation with Jennifer spread quickly through the school's gossip network. By the next morning, everyone seemed to know that Marcus Thompson had chosen the quiet, studious Elena Rodriguez over one of the most popular girls in school. The reaction was mixed, with some students respecting his choice while others seemed baffled by his preference for someone they considered beneath his apparent social value. Elena herself remained largely oblivious to the drama surrounding their friendship. She was naturally focused on her studies and future goals rather than high school social politics. But Marcus began to notice that she sometimes seemed uncertain about his motives for spending time with her. The moment of truth came on a rainy Thursday afternoon when Marcus and Elena were working together in the library. They had finished their biology project the previous week, earning an A+ and praise from Mrs. Patterson for their thorough research and insightful analysis. Now they were helping each other with assignments for their other classes, but the academic excuse for their time together was becoming less necessary as their friendship deepened. Marcus, Elena said suddenly, looking up from the calculus problems she was helping him solve. Can I